Hello everybody and welcome back to Robert's Reviews. Today we have another Steve Carell movie for you. Just as a heads up, we will be finishing this not next month but the month after. We're going to be out of Steve Carell movies to watch. So we are getting closer for those of you who are following along in the series. And if you're not following on the series, please consider following the series. There is a playlist called Steve Carell Reviews. Go ahead and check that out. And please consider subscribing. It really helps me out a lot. At the time of filming, we're at 81, so let's get it to 100. A lot of people that watch my content are not subscribers. So please consider doing that. It helps me out a lot, and to help me get monetized, which would be fantastic, because then I could spend more of my attention doing this. So without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about today's Steve Carell movie, The Big Short. The Big Short was released in 2015. It was written by Charles Randolph and Adam McKay and was directed by Adam McKay. So, for those of you who don't know what this movie is about, first of all, it's not on any streaming services that I know of. I had to rent it for $3 on YouTube. So this movie is about the stock market crash. Well, I guess the housing market crash. The economic crash in the mid-2000s. And essentially it's about the people that found out first. And they were basically cheating the system to be able to get a lot of money off of it, which they did. And my thoughts on this movie are complicated, okay? Because, I'm going to talk about purely the movie itself, and then I'm going to talk about cinematography, because they're completely different. So, in terms of story, I didn't need a movie about this, mainly because I was alive during it, and not that it necessarily impacted me very much, but I knew about it, I was aware of it, and I didn't necessarily need a movie about it. It didn't help, really. I think that was kind of almost lazy, and I don't mean lazy as in like the cinematography. I think that just the story itself was kind of like, ooh, what's an idea for a movie? Like, let's talk about this. Which I'm not upset about, but I am, it was boring, in my opinion. It was 2 hours and 10 minutes long, which was way too long for this movie. This movie could have been like an hour and a half, and probably would have been like just fine. I didn't really care for any of the characters. There was no emotional connect to any of these characters. I liked some of them, I guess, but like, I didn't feel connected to them, which it's not a movie where you're supposed to be connected to them, but it didn't help that I didn't really care for any of these people. I didn't care if they got the money. I didn't care if they were correct. It didn't bother me either way, which is a problem, I think, in terms of if you want to build audience to actor connections, which I think is important in a movie. But I didn't particularly care for that aspect of the film. But the cinematography of this film is so cool, and I like the directing in particular by Adam McKay, which for those of you who don't know, I typically don't really enjoy Adam McKay films, but I loved the directing of this film. For one, it felt so modern. It's 2015, so it's relatively modern, but like still, it felt smooth. All the camera movements felt exact and precise. But more importantly, in terms of writing and directing, excuse me, my nose is like itchy today. We got this really cool part of this movie that felt really interesting. So they have these moments where they break the fourth wall. And for those of you who don't know what that means, essentially, like this is a fourth wall right here. This is the fourth wall, where typically if I were in a movie, I'd be facing like over here and I'd be talking to another person. But instead, in the fourth, when you break the fourth wall, you look directly into the camera and you speak to your audience, which in a movie doesn't happen very often. For people who like Deadpool, that happens all the time. That's like his thing, because it doesn't happen very often, in particular in movies. And here I thought was really, really well done. At first I was like, he's talking to me, which is fine. But I genuinely was interested in the fact that we were able to pull that off without having audience members being confused, right? Because that's a risk. That's a big risk. If it doesn't go well, it could be really, really bad. And it almost was. It wasn't, but it almost was, in terms of just that part. And then, like, they brought in Margot Robbie to sit in a bathtub and drink wine while explaining some definitions. And they brought in a famous chef as well. And it's interesting because they didn't want to... there was this one really cool part where these two people are meeting in a lobby and they're reading a magazine, and they literally break character to turn to the screen and be like, now this isn't exactly how that happened. We just want it to be because it'll make the movie feel more smooth. And I was like, whoa! Like, literally the director's like, how do we get the audience to understand this wasn't real? They're like, let's tell them. And I was like, ooh, interesting. This will not work for every movie. And I think it was smart to do it in this movie because this movie's about a financial crisis, and finance in general is hard to understand for most people, right? Like, I don't care about finance. I don't care. So it's interesting to me that they brought that up and they made it so that we were able to understand it without having to think too difficultly about it. They literally like, okay, you're 7, let me tell you about finance. And I was like, thank you, that helps me. It was really interesting how they did that, and they pulled it off. So props to Adam McKay on that. That was really cool. That was like one of the better parts of the film, because while I didn't particularly care for the beef of the movie, I think that it was almost revolutionary in the fact that it was able to pull off a fourth wall break in a mainstream movie that wasn't about fourth wall breaking. When you're watching Deadpool, you expect that, but you don't expect it in a movie about finance. How cool is that? But let's go ahead and talk about the acting real quick, which I have a lot of thoughts on. First, Ryan Gosling as Jared Vennet. So I liked Ryan Gosling in the last movie that I reviewed with him. Pardon my nose, it's so itchy. In Crazy Stupid Love, I reviewed him in that, and I thought he was fantastic. In this, while I think that he was good in the role, I did not at all care for his character, right? Which is a problem because that reflects on the actor, right? You would think it would. I think it's just the fact that it's not a particularly enticing movie with not very good characters, right? Like, it's a boring financial crisis that they're trying to make interesting, which, albeit some parts were interesting, but one of those parts that was not interesting, unfortunately, was his character. There was one scene where he was discussing it with, like, the Jenga blocks. Really well done, really liked that. And then we went on to do this, and I was like, fine. Like, the rest of his character was, like, boring, and he didn't do anything. He didn't do anything special after that. I thought he was going to be, like, a really, really important person, and it turns out he really kind of just wasn't. Oh, my nose. Christian Bale as Michael Burry. Yes, best performance of the movie. I had to think first. I was like, yeah, it is. He's really good. So he has a glass eye, and he's, like, the first person to really notice it, and he bets a lot of money on the fact that this is about to fail, and he pays out pretty well. He's fun because he's so laid back, and, like, it seems like he definitely has, like, some kind of mental issue, which is really fun. And it was really cool. I liked his performance a lot. I've actually really started liking Christian Bale. I watched him in another movie recently. I don't remember which one, but I really like him. He's really good in this movie, and honestly, like, good for him. Like, one of the better performances of the film. I really enjoyed it. Every time he was on screen, I was like, hey, I like this guy. This guy's cool. They did a pretty good job making him the protagonist pretty early when he was getting yelled at by his boss, which is fine. I mean, he could have easily been a bad guy if we had watched this from the point of view of the banks, which might have been a cooler idea, I think, for the movie. But whatever. I really liked Christian Bale in this, and I'm excited to watch more in the future. I'm sure I will. But I liked him a lot in this movie. Steve Carell as Mark Baum. So they did this weird thing where, like, so he's like a person who's married to Marissa Tomei, and basically he owns his own little bank thing that also knows about the crisis. And he's in a lot of the movie. I think he might have the most screen time, except maybe Christian Bale. They did this thing where, like, they gave him a wig, or they dyed his hair for some reason, and didn't care for that, like, almost at all. And he talked in this weird way that, like, just didn't feel natural. I'm very conflicted with Carell's recent performances in the series, because in his earlier films, it felt like he was the star, and it felt like he knew what he was doing in those earlier films. And the more and more we get into this, I mean, meh. I don't think Steve Carell is as good as I originally thought he was. I liked him in Freeheld. I think Foxcatcher was interesting, at least. I don't know for sure if he knows what he's doing in this section of weirdness. It's like, it's an uncomfortable, like, niche issue where, like, maybe this isn't what he's supposed to do. I thought his dramatic movies were going to be really good, and so far, I liked Freeheld a lot, but other than that, like, not many particularly good movies that have Steve Carell in it, and it's unfortunate, but such is life. The more recent ones, like 2020, 2019, 2018, I'm excited to talk about those ones, because I liked a couple of them at least. I'm excited to rewatch a few of them, like Beautiful Boy. I liked that one when that came out, so I'm excited to talk about those, but that's actually in March. Those are in March, so those will be fun at least to talk about. And finally, Brad Pitt as Ben Rickert. What a chameleon. I knew that was Brad Pitt, but it did not at all look like Brad Pitt. I can't decide if it's a really good performance or a really bad performance. Because it didn't look like Brad Pitt at all, which is really cool, but that might not be a him thing. It might be a costume department thing or a special effects thing. I think the performance is fine. I didn't think he was distracting, but I didn't think his character was very cool. Overall, kind of boring, not gonna lie. It's just not what you would expect from Brad Pitt. I loved him in Fury. I'd love to review that at some point. I'm sure I will. And this, he's not bad, but he's not, like, fantastic, like I kind of expect from Brad Pitt. But I think a lot of it has to do with just the poor character writing. I just didn't care for any of these characters, so that kind of sucked. But I think it's going to talk. I'm tired. I think it's going to be all her talking about The Big Short today. Overall, watch it. I'd say it's fun. It's at least intriguing, particularly in terms of the cinematography and the directing, and some of the writing is really creative. But if you're looking for a drama movie that is really fun and enticing, this just might not be for you. But that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and give this movie a B+, mainly because of the directing and the cinematography, which I thought was quite spectacular. That's going to do it for me today. Tomorrow we have We Were Soldiers, which is a request. Also tomorrow, Tom and Jerry is released on HBO Max, as well as another episode of WandaVision. I'm hoping to watch Tom and Jerry tomorrow and release a review on it, but I don't know for sure if that will happen. We will see. Ideally, I will, but sometimes things aren't ideal, particularly when I'm filming this on the 11th, and it comes out on the 26th, so that's a long time from now, so we'll see how it goes. But I'm not going to say look forward to it, because it may or may not happen, but I go ahead and assume I probably will do a review on Tom and Jerry. But that's going to do it for me today. As always, keep watching movies and television, stay educated, and I'll see you guys in the next video.